Welcome everybody to the One Deag Show. I'm not really gonna get into too many introductions. All you need to know about the show is that we all get one shot to bring a topic into the limelight. And honestly, I thought like bringing a podcast to life, I'd be thanking the guest. But I do have an introduction actually. Tea Time and I are very polite individuals because I thought I'd be thanking Tony for his time, but we just bent over backwards for him and spread our cheeks for the time zone. So here we are. Thank you, Tea Time, for waking up at, being up at midnight. How are you guys feeling?
I just got told that my cheeks were prepared for Tony, and I
Me
wasn't really
too.
entirely ready for that. So,
Me
yeah.
neither.
Well, I mean, you're on a podcast with me. What did you expect? Tony, since I did mention that we are a polite couple of individuals, I did also decide that, hey, we're going to let Tony have his topic be brought to the limelight first. So, what are you going to do with your one shot that you've got on the Deagle?
Well, listen, I think that mine's probably going to be a pretty good easing into the podcast. It's a light one. It's like a softball, if you will, as opposed to the fastball. I'm talking about roster changes in roster changes to be specific, actually, because I feel like over the course of the last 10 years, ever since I started watching at the very least, there's been like a shift in how people have looked at teams and the moves that they make, the timings in which they make them. And I kind of want to say that it feels really claustrophobic nowadays. And I think that it exposes a lot of the incompetence of a lot of general management of a lot of esports organizations in the VRS landscape. I think it also makes a lot of sense for players to take the easy option sometimes and then settle because they really want to play the season out as opposed to having to almost jail themselves for the next 6 to 7 months. No joke intended in that. Sorry, but yeah, I feel like roster changes are just nowadays. I feel like they're kind of ugly. I feel like they're not really done in the way that they once were, where it felt more comfortable. It felt like they had more reasoning behind them. Now it's kind of just like they throw something at the wall, and maybe we can't replace this player in 3 months, so now we have to try and do it now. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, did you have something very specific in mind, like a team, or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can name a couple of them as of the last year or so that have been just kind of jarring to me as far as the timings of things. And I think also before I get into even that, the loophole situation with roster changes has become more and more apparent over the last year or two as well. Like the Kerrigan thing that just went down, the Malbs trade that just went down between G2 and Nerds and Liquid. Those things are things that it's, well, can we get this done at the end of the season? Can we get it done early? And there's always uproar about well, oh my god, now they're changing regions, now they're flipping their VRS just to cheat the system, blah blah blah. And then you have esports incompetence in what I would like to call OG currently, and how they fumbled their way through what was once a project in the core at the very least that was pretty promising. I think that looking at that team for one, I feel like Fnatic for another. For a time there was even NIP who we were kind of on the fence about that eventually managed to make it work. But yeah, I mean these instances, I feel like if we were outside of the VRS landscape, just wouldn't be a problem.
I mean, I don't know if I'd go that far. I think you're right about the idea that the roster moves have changed very significantly. But I mean, what, 4 years ago during the COVID years, we still had the same problems. There's a reason why Caserado didn't go to Liquid even before the VRS stuff and whatnot. The problem is that we just live in a world where contracts prohibit things like trials, for example. It's very rare that you're going to actually be able to trial a player for a month or whatever. The only way you're doing that is if it's an academy player from Spirit Academy or Navi or something like that, who you're able to bring in, maybe to a team like Bait who've gotten Sizzy and whatnot. For Liquid right now, for example, I think pretty much the perfect case study for weird roster moves that don't make sense. They're bringing Symmetry on to replace Ultimate, and look, as much as I think Symmetry is okay, I don't think he's very good. But I don't think you can trial him right now. He just got done playing the major. He was almost at the top 8 of the major as well. Symmetry is not going to be wasting his time trialing for you, nor would his contract probably allow that. So for Liquid, they're coming into it with, because I tweeted about this, and a lot of people are applying to me, oh, you don't know what's going on in their trials. They don't have trials. That's not a thing anymore. Now it's very much like, okay, what's my budget? Who can I afford? And if I can't afford anyone who's just clear cut good, well, in that case, I'm going to go around and gamble on it. The weird thing, though, don't need to build on what you're saying, is I think the gambles just kind of suck, right? Because Liquid are
Yeah.
going for Symmetry as a gamble, while you compare that to a team like MIBR going for Klim as a gamble. I think Klim made a lot of sense that, hey, maybe this kid could be really great later on. He's from an academy team. We can get him on an actual loan, and if that doesn't work out, We don't have that work. That's why I'd like to see a player like Sizzy, for example, be picked up, because he could also be picked up on that loan from Team Spirit, Academy Black, and all of those things as well. I just think I'm with you, but I don't know how you can blame the VRS for this. Sure, the VRS is creating an ecosystem where, you've got the major substitution rule, this and that and everything, but the VRS is an entirely separate problem altogether.
I can give you an example actually as to why
Go
you
for
can blame VRS, because these players are hinged on teams and they're hinged on their core. They can't make roster changes outside of keeping these players just because of the sake of they have to. A lot of teams now are keeping players purely because they need them for the next season for those 5 games or whatever the case may be. And it's also inhibiting a lot of these teams from getting their first choice. Like, how many times in the last year have we heard rumors of like a team wanting to do this or that or the other thing and then settling on another guy, a different player?
But is that because of? Can you give me an example where that's because of the VRS score instead of like just something as simple as, hey, they buyouts are expensive?
I think Mal Sports, that's a pretty good one. I think Mal's are a team that needed to make some kind of a change, felt like they were a little bit claustrophobic, ended up feeling Broline at the major, and now they don't even know whether or not he's going to be a part of the roster into the new season. He was like, they said that I might be able to come back, and I'm like, do they? Like, do you really think so?
They're
Or like,
lying.
are you just saying that?
And I mean,
FaZe Clan, when they were going through all their tribes and tribulations with especially Kerrigan leaving the team, again, it's another like jail situation purely because they need to hold on to their players. So it's like, oh shit, well, get Naitu in here, who else can we field right now? Like,
and I mean, Tony, I'm gonna build on what you said. Like, do you think BC Game would ever gone through the core that they did had they not had VRS points? Like, that's like a classic example of just like pick them off the streets and pump them for their VRS points. Like,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and I mean, Tea Time. A second ago, you mentioned like Team Spirit Academy Black, whatever, right? Like the 1,000 teams that they've got, and I feel like this is sort of like a two-fork thing, right? Where yes, you have like some VRS implications, but then like the conversation that goes back to the contracts. There used to be a time, like you mentioned, like 4 or 5 years ago, where if you decided to like go cherry picking in tier 2, you're like, okay, whose contract looks bad enough? Who can I poach for like a couple $1,000s? But now you need to go through like 50% of Russia until you finally find some 12-year-old who's playing CS who isn't on a contract for like a $500 salary, but like a limitless buyout.
No, but okay. Again, no. This is I'm just
this is a separate
really heavily on this.
Guess, yeah.
First of all, on the buyout conversation and whatnot, look, the buyout thing has been an issue since literally 2018, 2019, right? Like that's when Furia at the ECSs started doing well. Was that 2018 ECS season 5, if I remember correctly? And after that was when very famously MIBR and whatnot wanted to get them. Similarly, a lot of the Russian players who people like Jerry on Forza, people like Zorte on Forza, it was so hard to get them out of their contracts, even though I'm sure they were being paid a pittance for their salary. This has been a problem forever. This is just buyouts, and it sucks. I agree with you, but international laws are what they are. When it comes to the VRS thing, yes, BC Game is a great example. It's definitely the most atrocious one in that regards. But in the same way, dude, we used to have a 3-man core that you needed to have back in the day, where you had to have it till the next major. I mean, everyone remembers how pathetic it would be because a team made like Legends, and then they had a garbage team and they couldn't make the roster moves they needed because they were like, well, this is our ticket to the major guaranteed. So we had so many teams not going for changes that would have made them better because they saw other teams. Like, again, it's funny that they're going to keep coming up. Ninjas in Pajamas back in 2017 or so, when they had like 3 years where they didn't make a major before Stockholm or something like that. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but this major cycle being the sort of cornerstone of what defines roster moves has been a permanent factor. Now what's happening though is we're getting more mid-season roster moves because there is actually the option of, hey, play a month out with your core with 2 new players and you can still bring someone else in. I just think Mouse is also one of those examples, Tony, to sort of go back to what you were saying, where Mouse is just kind of clueless because they don't know what they need to change because it's such a strange problem to solve when every one of your players on paper was pretty decent and was clearly someone who could be seen as not the problem, but they just couldn't get to, that number 1 spot. That choke factor couldn't be overcome and everything. And yeah, whatever. They might have told Brolin that, yeah, hey man, like 100%, you might still be in. Fuck no, dude. Like, he's not going to be in. If he'd be dumb to think for a second he'd be in. There was interviews with Cyclone where Cyclone the HLTV headline was, then I'm sold on Zershin being a real IGL.
Right.
Right? So I just think I'm with you that roster moves have gotten worse than they've ever been in sort of immediately what I'm remembering, because even when I look back to the old NIP, for example, by comparison, back in 2020, 2021, they're getting like good players on their team. They're getting Device on their team. They're getting Alexi B on their team. They're getting Config on their team. Players who independently are good pickups, and I think everyone would agree with that. Now it's just like teams are getting players who I've got no idea what the logic behind that is. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but someone like Regali would be so much better for Liquid if you want to go for a risk in a mode like this rather than Symmetry, who's now played like 6 tier 1 events
Also,
and
apparently
done well
it's
at one of them.
apparently it's Slend or someone else. I think Symmetry's off the table. They said it was
Thank God.
Slend or somebody else. Just to
Because that's so good.
I mean, it's hard to even
Yeah.
like. I mean, if you're going for the biggest reach possible, then you could maybe say like, "Hey, it's kind of a sidestep," but no, it really isn't. Like, I had
I mean,
to.
he's better than Ultimate probably, but that's actually, to be fair, I don't even know
when
that.
when I said
remember how bad he was
sidestep,
on-
I meant
Yeah.
like from the potential options, but now we're finding out
Yeah.
that hey, they're not potential options, and it's kind of difficult to track the roster moves because even now, like as I'm refreshing HLTV, like there's some report or the other coming in, so who knows. I
Yeah.
mean, while we're on the subject of this, though, is there any like other roster move that you maybe particularly didn't like or liked in this season, Tony?
Yeah, that's like a good I guess like tie up. I feel like, looking at like all the rumors coming out right now, as well as the ones that have been confirmed, there's again just feels like trigger pulling that feels like it's strangled. Wrinkle for Sun Pius.
Oh God.
I don't see, like, I don't think Wrinkle's like an unsalvageable player, but I just find it awkward that the timing of this move didn't follow him when we were thinking he was a player capable of doing that, because he was at one point in time in my radar to be like, oh, maybe he could do that eventually. And right now he's like, oh shit, this is not the version of Wrinkle I think I would want to see on G2. But yeah, I think that one is just kind of like questionable, and it feels again like suffocated. It feels like it kind of like you need to do it now or never, replacing some Pious. What are our options? Boom. And then other than that, I can't really think of too many that I actually enjoyed. I can say, I guess, tentatively, the signing of Slacksjez and the temporary signing of Hobbit to Paravision
Paravision.
will
Yeah.
be definitely interesting. I think it'll be interesting. I think they were on a honeymoon period when they had the previous two players already, and I think it was silly of people to expect them to remain a contender. And I think this is something that shakes it up a little bit and makes it more interesting again.
Yeah, I think as far as like good roster moves are concerned, I think an interesting one at least is the gives me the 100 Thieves, which immediately
It's
you're
not
looking at
confirmed yet, is
Rain.
it?
It's not
Pretty
confirmed.
much.
Agile got benched, so it's confirmed. It's
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of know, right? Which means that one of the questions also answered that Rain won't be IGLing on this team anymore, and he'll be going back to being a pretty good player individually,
Hell yeah,
hopefully.
I'm all for this.
Look, this is cool. That's fine. And I like this because 100 Thieves are going in a great direction where I can see you building on this. But um, do they have the firepower to make it to a LAN? Or is this going to need one more change coming out later on as well? I think they do need another change pretty soon because Device might have picked things up later again. I think Sarah and Poi have had some really good matches and whatnot, but this isn't a top 25 team even with Gizmi on it. And that's what they have to aim for this season.
I'm trying to think like, hey, maybe if like you've got Rain in like more of a pole position, then that firepower can kind of be compensated for, but maybe not truly. But I will say, like, I think you're bang on the money with saying that the trajectory is getting better, because like if you see a superstar like Rain, or at least someone who has the legacy that Rain does, right? I really appreciate the strategy of, hey, we tried it, it's not working out, let's get him back to the form that he's good at, instead of like sort of making him like a lolcow like Simple, where you get like someone with all that legacy and then you just make them something that you didn't pay for through your own decisions. And I like that 100 Thieves are willing to backtrack quickly if something didn't work out. Like in sort of this fast-moving environment, I think this is perfect.
Yeah, I have one more thing I'd like to say before we do end up fully moving on from this conversation, and it's kind of a bridge between what Tea Time was saying about how it's always kind of been tied into the major cycle, the roster changes, and how they feel. And I feel like the one period of time that I didn't really feel like it was that great of an issue, and I was actually enjoying a lot of the teams that were birthed from each major ending, was the in-between periods of when the Legends status actually gave you an invitation to the event, and VRS's existence in the 2022 to the end of CSGO,
The
where we were just
RMRs?
doing RMRs. Dude, I loved the RMR era. Every single major, I loved the energy that came out of those events. And listen, maybe it's not for everyone, but I will say that just going back between all three of the majors that I ended up watching in 100% of their entirety, from Antwerp to Rio to Blast, like, dude, those three, man, that was like my last renaissance, I feel like, when it
I'm
came to
I'm
enjoying
not gonna
that.
lie, Tony. I don't know if you can tell by Tea Time's expression, but I feel like you might be on your own in this one, King.
Fine with me. I feel like everybody was putting up a bitch and a moan on Twitter, and I got my engagements when talking about it. So
Fair
so
enough. I
good.
mean, you got to do anything for the views, right? I mean, why are we having this podcast anyway? So you got to start somewhere. Anyway,
Love the RMRs.
is there anything you guys would like to sort of tie this up with, or can we move on to Tea Time's point?
I'm ready.
I think just the last thing is that one of the cool things that we will see though is within the next year is now that we're done with the entire, oh my god, like if we just buy a VRS score, you're going to be fine because BCG and Falcons have both proven that that doesn't do much. I do think it's just going to be kind of interesting with all of the small lands that are coming up, the local lands and everything being back. We're going to get to see a lot more like old school recruitment where people will just see each other at a land, see another guy play a lot more. There's going to be a lot more direct interaction in that regards between a rank 35 team and a rank 75 team than we've had before on land. So that part will be cool for roster moves. It's just going to take at least a year for general managers to figure it out, to be honest.
I mean, I think like forget the general managers, right? Like if they're getting a lot of information from like either your IGL or your coach, like because a lot of teams do like get their coach and IGLs involved with
Like
like
in-house.
yeah, like roster decisions, then I don't think the speed with which GMs get on board is going to matter that much if they were going to be making their decisions off of player and coach feedback anyway. So I think that's kind of good. And I mean, just to sort of touch upon the point you made about getting like physical interaction and being able to see players at a LAN and things like that. I like maybe partially that's also why like Gizme is getting all the attention now. Like obviously did super well taking a map off of Falcons, which maybe isn't like the best thing in the world because Falcons always kind of stoop to whatever level they're supposed to play against, or they'll rise to Furia, whatever, right? But still, I mean, obviously he did a great job, even if you're just watching online. But maybe there was something in person that was a little bit better about him. That being said, let's wrap this one up.
Wait, one
T-Time.
more thing.
Oh,
Last
okay,
thing. Last
okay,
thing.
go for
Last
it. Go
thing.
for it.
They keep flowing the ideas. I also think that we're gonna see a little bit more, which we actually have now. I can name like 3 different examples in the last like 3 months even. See a lot more like reunions of players, like players who have played together in years past who are just like, you know what? I remember him being pretty damn good, or I liked working with that guy. And it gets to be to like a different point in their careers where they find themselves like together again. Like Nico Kerrigan, that's the obvious biggest one. You got Stown and Shush, or rather Stown and Snappy now on an NIP. So I feel like the nepotism conversation is going to become more and more apparent as time goes by. And I'm cool with it, to be honest with you, because it creates some good storylines. It's honestly interesting to see these guys come from like 3 to 5 to even in some instances like 7 years apart and see how they interact. And it's just kind of cool. I like it.
I
Tony,
mean,
we're in broadcast style. Can you shut the fuck about
Sorry,
shut the
guys.
fuck about nepotism being
Sorry,
good? This
sorry.
is
yeah.
why,
Sorry, guys.
like, please stop it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm not saying I'm not hired because of nepotism.
It's cool if it's me.
Yeah,
I agree with
here's
you.
the
That's
thing.
true.
Like, I'm fine with nepotism in a competitive game because that means like if you screw up, you're just gonna get punished. You're gonna lose your points. Like, you're gonna look like an idiot for bringing a
Yeah,
dumbass on your team. Like, it's
exactly.
not like they'll just get paid in perpetuity unless they're like on a bench or something. Which I mean, I guess that kind of works out. Maybe that's kind of how. I mean, like in a weird way, that's kind of how Gokushima got his bag, right? Like, just get the money. Don't
Perfecto
actually.
getting on VP.
Okay, that's definitely a better example. But I just meant like getting a bag without having
Love
to play the
Perfecto.
game. There's a joke about Simple in there somewhere. But Tea Time, what's your point? Or your 1D, whatever. I've forgotten the theme already.
Yeah, so I'm used to missing my shots, but I think this one should be good. We're getting to this sort of golden age of South American Counter-Strike again.
Are we?
And we might have just missed it by like that one small sliver. Because what we just had is this year, we've had Legacy being really, really good. We've had 9Z being a revelation at the major. We've got Furia, obviously, still looking pretty fucking good. And obviously, when Fallen retires at the end of this year, that's going to be a big deal because there's going to be a leadership gap. But next year, going into the Argentinian major, another major in South America, first one since Rio, I think that's the second one ever. The problem is Legacy not getting Insani might mean that sort of golden era of South American Counter-Strike we could have just entered with 3 super competitive teams. I think it's just going to be such a miss right now because you're not going to get that Insani super team reuniting over on like the Brazilian side. I know they're looking at Try right now as well to be able to get him in and to have the big upgrade over Sadzin, who frankly just it cannot perform on a level that Legacy has been playing. If I was able to upgrade their Opper and I was able to upgrade like their Rifler to a team that was already threatening to consistently be top 8 at any tournament they're at, and even sometimes getting some big heads as long as they're not faced with like a Falc, but rather with a Vitality or a Spirit, give them a Mouse Sports, give them a Navi who hasn't had time to prep, and I think they could actually take that series off of them before. Not getting Insani just makes me so much less excited for this team. Insani is going to be trapped in MIBR till the end of 2026. And this is also stupid from MIBR because his contract is running out at the end of this year, right? And MIBR are going to have to let him go at that point regardless. We could have had a time where Fallen is still leading Furia, where they're still looking good and they're almost guaranteed to be a top 5 team, where 9Z is coming through as a closeted top 8. Legacy's got that same thing. We could have had 3 legitimate top 10 teams and a championship contender from South America in the second half of this year, and we're not going to have that, unfortunately.
And I mean, on the subject of timing, right? Like, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I'm just gonna do like a quick temperature check, but like, is it just me or did Fallen announce his retirement at like the worst time possible? Like, I feel like that kills the gusto of Brazilian CS. Like before it even starts, like, okay, you've got a golden window approaching, everyone's looking good. We've got the granddaddy of Brazilian CS. Guys, I'm gonna retire at the end of this year. So like like obviously like everyone's prepping for the major and things like that, but it almost feels like a freaking ticking time bomb. And like even watching like Molodoy on the stage, for example, like I feel like he died 1,000 deaths there. Like he was like
crying, dude.
Dude, that's the thing, right? Like the joke is that you've got a major final on Father's Day. Like on the other side, you've got Monacy carrying the hell out of Nico on Mirage, like starting off like 12-1 or whatever the hell the scoreline was, and then Molodoy is like straight up like biting his fingernails off because he feels like he's letting down his foster dad, and like dad's about to retire soon.
Yeah, that is pretty sad. I mean, there's also the thing where now the rumors have been floated, if not honest and truthfully, like some validity to them even still happening about Molodoy having offers from Aurora and maybe even taking it, which was like, I mean, it sounds.
Yeah, because Woxic is obviously the problem on Aurora.
Yeah, of course, that. But it sounds insane to like say like, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, in Molodoy's mind, you're thinking to yourself, is the in-game leader that I could possibly have going to be any better than Fallen for one when he is eventually retired? Are Serato and Yuri going to be able to keep up the level of form that I'm going to need from them in order to get into the, higher levels of what Counter-Strike is going to have to offer? Also, probably not. I feel like they don't have as much time as like top 10 rifles as people think because they're not young.
Why?
I'll tell you that. Because they ain't young and they ain't getting any younger.
But they ain't
getting any better either. They're actively getting worse. Sorry, everybody who might be a fan. But like Serato and Yuri are like
Yuri did just have like his best 3 months in God knows how long now.
Is 3 months long enough though? I feel like that's a situationship.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be putting all my stock in Yuri and Serato over the course of the next like 2 years after Fallen, post Fallen. Like I don't know if that's going to be enough for me if I'm Molodoy. And Yakindar I think is actually one of the brightest lights of this team as far as like a reliable player in their role. Like whether or not you need to have heavy amounts of firepower so long as you're performing in what you do. And then you look at the Aurora team and I'm like, is it really that much better? It's kind of the same shit, different toilet. Like, I don't really know if it's going to be any better to be like, is Zontara's going to keep up his form?
Who's brought that rumor? Because I can't find it.
Who's what?
Who's brought the Aurora rumor from Molodoy? Because I can't find it.
I can't recall who said it, but it's been rumored.
Is it on HLTV? Like, is it like an HLTV rumor or is it like a Twitter rumor?
Isn't it?
closer to a Twitter rumor, but it is still there was
Okay,
still
got
a
it.
lot
Is
of like they said it on HLTV confirmed. I believe Sponge said it or
Got it.
somebody
Okay.
okay? So
from
just
there.
to be clear, the rumor is Molodoi to Aurora. Isn't it gonna be like a huge punch in the gut if you've got like video evidence of Fallen just like hugging Molodoi and saying, I mean, you would be my son in another life, and then he just goes to a Turkish team. Like, that's crazy. I mean, that's rough.
Yeah, I don't know, but just so we don't get too far off track from what your original point was, even regarding South American Counter Strike. Looking at the South American Counter Strike window that we're talking about, it's like this window. You said it very aptly was very tight. There was a very thin way to wiggle through,
Yeah.
and having missed that so narrowly, it's not, in my opinion, like we're gone forever and dead and done. I think it's going to be a matter of, in my opinion, maybe it was a good thing we missed this window. I think it was a good thing. I think at the end of this, South American Counter Strike's actually going to come out of it stronger, not immediately, but in the future, at the time in which Insani's contract is going to expire, at the time in which Fallen is going to be off Furia, and they can actually build something that's for a project more than just 6 months. Now, as the point
So
where we
like
are
the
here.
ball's just been kicked
So,
like 6 months down the road. We're like, okay, like
yes.
for
But
for real seas we wait for Fallen to retire. For real seas we wait for Insani's contract to go away. Then we can start building.
So we don't
the
do the
thing
thing I was saying in
is,
my last point. Like the roster changes needed to be made right now because we don't know if we're going to be able to make them later, and it's going to be kind of modge podge, and it's not going to be as good as we want. And all of a sudden, South America's in the shitter, and Insani is in a new contract jail.
no, okay, so to be fair, like the thing is, Legacy gives Insani a very, very good foundation to be in like a long-term team because number one, Art's a decent IGL. I think Art's been like also showing up to have changed his game a fair bit in this past like half year to 8 months. I think Art's been showing us like some of the better IGLing he's done in a very long time. So when it comes to like leadership in the Brazilian scene or just South American, that is the team you want to be on if Fallen isn't there, because Bigazar is not good enough to lead Furia right now. Even if you end up in Furia later on, do you want to be on a team where Yekindar is going to be the IGL? More likely than not, because there aren't really that many international options either. I don't know, man. I don't think Yekindar IGLing is going to do too well. Sure, Insani on Furia would be a great like franchise player and replacement and all of these things, but I just think that if we'd had this sort of Insani going over to Legacy right now, we would be primed to be in a position where, even the idea that who's getting NQZ again? Is it Pain?
Yeah.
MIBR.
Are they?
Right.
Yeah, MIBR signed in NQZ. Yeah.
Oh, MIBR is signing NQZ. Sort of MIBR is going back over towards that side as well. I mean, I don't know how. By the way, just sidebar. How is LNZ going to stay on a team with 4 Brazilians around him?
He's got a
I'm
coach.
very
Don't worry,
curious.
Ledney. He's got Ledney. Oh, good.
This is what Letney felt like in Tai Lu as well. Look, man, I know what it was like in Asia for him.
Right.
Where only one person spoke English. Shout out to Ben Tat. That's why he stayed on the team for so long.
I'm also just shocked with the Insani conversation, how like very little it's brought up the fact that they're replacing their hard anchor and support player. Like Dumao and Insani are the same guy. So I don't really know who's gonna eat shit and die now. I guess it would be Art.
Dumao.
You think Dumao would be the one to do? Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
sure, but like that's also like
I just
it's
say
just
this
one of those
because
things. Insani couldn't coexist with Lukowski. Is he going to be able
yeah,
to do
that's
it
what
with
I'd
Dumao?
refer to it. Yeah, look, that's sort of what I would go back to. I just think that Insani Lukowski conversation comes up again over here with Dumao, and I just think that Insani has like a lot more respect sort of in that scene, much the same way the case Rado did not too long ago. I think Insani would be the one given that position and priority. Duma would have to eat some shit. That's fine.
Okay.
Nassim has had some problems on this team, from what I understand.
Also
He's
a former star.
also a former star, yeah, but I just think he's had some problems on the team, even just in terms of, personalities and whatnot and this and that, from what I've heard from non-credible sources. I will add that, so I'm not 100% sure about that. But yeah, I still think that would have been super exciting, especially at a time where, sure, Fallen retires at the end of the year. Furia still stays good for 4 to 6 months, probably, because that's just how long it takes before you go to complete shit without a decent IGL. Could have been interesting. Unfortunately, it's not, and we're not going to get to see that. And I'm much less optimistic than you about the idea that we're going to have a South American golden age later on, because, for me, on one end, you're saying Kesrat and Yuri are going to fall off. Fallen's going to retire. Molodoi is leaving. 9Z is definitely not staying top 10 without having to make at least one more roster move and find one more pretty great talent and whatnot as well. I don't know, dude. I don't think there comes another window. Not until we have an entirely new generation of South American players, which I don't see yet.
Also, I
I'm
mean,
shocked 9Z didn't jump on Try. Also, sidebar.
yeah, I mean, I was
fully with you, by the way.
I was
But
just gonna,
but he just had such a good major. Is the issue? What Marin is your up,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Marin
yeah.
just had such a good major. You can't kick him off for that.
That's
Mayer fucking sucked, actually.
dude. That's the problem, right? Like,
At the major, wait, what am I thinking of then?
No, you're right on track, T-Time, because he had a couple of really great games, right? That's why people are like, oh, dude, this guy's been kind of irrelevant for the longest time. Also, he's like 23 years
He had
old,
like one
but
banger
he's
map against Vitality. That's what I remember.
Maybe that's what I remember.
okay,
Yeah.
but so listen to this. He's only 23 years old, but he's been playing since like 2017. So like you have like a pretty big sample size of like, hey, this guy's been playing since he was 15. Like he's reliably been like, he's putting in the hours. He's just clocking into like the Counter-Strike 9 to 5. Nothing super impressive. But then if he has like a good time at the major, then it becomes like difficult to kick him. But then also, I don't see Mayer like having like forget a map. Like I just don't see him having like another great major in a row or like another like big tournament, especially because we've seen like no proof otherwise. Like okay, you get one big success, but then you can't immediately undo like the 6 or 7 or so years. No pun intended again, Tony. I know how I know that look. Okay, but the idea is I feel like you can't immediately undo
I
that.
didn't get it.
Mayer can't be like a 1.0 or below player on this team. Like he just can't. You know what I mean?
You can't be a 1.0 or below opper in general ever. Like I feel like unless I guess in like some weird way you're like IGLing and maybe secondary opping, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
and what sucks is like he's been going through the gauntlet, to be honest. Like he's playing a level of competition that he's never, or rather not never, he hasn't played in years and ever as an opper. So it's like you look at who he played in the last couple of lands they've been to in comparison to how he looks in South American Counter-Strike or local North American Counter-Strike, and it's like, oh, okay, well, when he's not playing against Vitality or Spirit or Mongols or like this team, that team, it's like, oh, he looks pretty good. But, it's unfortunate to say that you can only beat the teams that are in front of you. So
I'm with you though. Try would have been like maps again. He had a few good maps, and it just the ones he had that were bad were just so atrocious that his rating overall went down. But like individually looking at going up against a team like Paravision, going up against a team like Vitality, had a good map versus Spirit as well. Individually, like these are good enough results where a team's gonna be like, well, we just made top 8. We really want to mess with the secret sauce right now and whatnot. Try probably has like an insane buyout and everything as well. Do we want to spend that much money when we just made top 8 and we want to at least try and see how this works? But yeah, I mean, if Try is available, this is the best time possible for 9Z to go for an upgrade, and they are at their most desirable ever because they're going to have access to every single tier 1 event over the next 3.5 to 4 months. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, so does Legacy, but and I think Legacy might have more financial backing, but I'm not sure about that.
Also, like Try has been passing the eye test with flying colors for like ages now. Like he kind of like in terms of career sort of length, he falls under the same bracket as Mayer, but he's actually been like super successful. Like even at the start of his career, like it did start at 9Z, right? He was carrying the hell out of them. Double O Nation, back to 9Z, carrying again. Like there's never been a time where he hasn't. So yeah, I definitely
they even
agree.
played together on the same 9Z at one point in time, Mayer.
Yeah, I remember.
Funny.
Yeah, I don't really know how that would work, to be honest.
Marin was a rifler before.
Okay, yeah. That definitely explains a lot more things. So, boys, is there anything else you'd like to bring to the table to tie this one up?
I guess I have a question for Tea Time. With the where we stand now, right? Like where we are as far as things that we know are going to happen and aren't going to happen with South American CS roster changes. Try is still available, quote unquote, and he's going to Legacy supposedly, but we still don't know who Legacy's actual 5th is going to be. It's obviously Sadzin who's going to be on the way out for Try. Who would you pick up, assuming that either one or two of Sadzin and Try are going to be on that team? And how good do you think it's going to be with Neeson now out?
Look, it's a difficult question because the issue is a lot of the players who I have rated in the past and whatever, who I think are sort of like these sleeper picks, haven't done that well. Like, I actually thought Lux was pretty good on Legacy, to be perfectly frank. If they want to bring him back in, then that would be good. But, from what I've seen, a lot of his calling issues and whatnot used to revolve around himself. And can he play as a role player in that case, if that's the kind of player he is, even though I thought individually he was very, very good? I don't know if he has that in him. I don't actually know who I bring in right now, because for me, I mean, is Lukowski on a team? If you want to try and gamble for it. He's on
Fun, though.
Fluxo right now, right? He's on the bench though, if I remember correctly.
I think he's just freshly benched.
Yeah, so I mean, look, if you want to try for that kind of system where you're increasing your firepower and maybe relegate it to anchor roles, presumably Dumao will still be the person doing it because Lacaze has shown he can't do it. Maybe him, and I just don't think that'd be good. Like, I think it'd be pretty underwhelming. I think a lot of the other players who people have been hyping up, I think it's been pretty unnecessary. Like people like Beria Jr. Beria's just not very good. Like a lot of the
Whoa,
Pain
damn.
lineup just isn't that good on a level where Legacy's playing. Legacy is going to be invited to every tier 1 event.
Yeah, and
Right? Like, let's not forget that.
I'm just gonna add to that. It's so uncomfortable for any of the teams to sort of experiment in that sense because the one of the unique things about the South American scene is that if you try to like bring out a talent like out of the blue, or even if you're just going for a bit of an upgrade, right? Like you're maybe plucking out a player from like rank 25 or 30 up to like the big leagues. A lot of the time they're simply not gonna have the same level of experience. Like they might completely fall flat. Like I'll give you an example which I really dislike. Not a South American example, but just an example in general. You remember when Ryu was like looking freaking awesome in in the online circuit? You're like, okay, yeah, let's just put him on a tier 1 team flat. Nothing happens. So you never know. I mean, T-Time, you said that you were rating a lot of players. They didn't end up panning out, and I feel like there is that fear within the South American scene, and for good reason. And that's also where I'm like, okay, what do you guys do when Fallen's gone? Like, surely that's a bit of a panic button, right?
Can I go for it? Like, okay, so, oh God, I'm just coming up with this. I would have to sit down and really question and contemplate. But fuck it. Maybe Skulls? If you need just like an anchor player to come in, right? Because he's on the bench of Imperial. He does have very good history playing just an okay anchor,
That's
which
an
is what this
economic
team
choice.
needs. Yeah, exactly. You
The
could
thing-
probably actually get him as well, and no one rates him. Now, the only issue that immediately comes to my head is Art and Skulls did not get along in Furia. But, Skulls has also failed his career since then, and Art has revived his. So maybe that can be rectified.
I'm also just gonna add that I feel like Skulls fell under the same bracket. Like I'm not gonna say that there wasn't a time that Skulls was bad. Like I'm not gonna go into like revisionist history and be like, no, Skulls was always great. No, absolutely not. It's just that I feel like he suffered the same fate, like at a very microscopic level as Blame F. Remember how Blame F at some point had to wait for like HLTV ratings, like their algorithm to catch up before people were like, okay, yeah, maybe he's not an eco fragger, maybe he's just like a great fragger, right? So in that sense, sometimes your reputation, just as a general consensus, can get so bad that teams might not be interested in you simply because a lot of them are just going off of what they've heard. Like there's like obviously data's gotten a lot better now since then, but you can't like analyze every single detail. So like you do start developing a bit of a confirmation bias. So I mean I don't hate your take, T-Time. It's just that it does get a bit experimental. I mean I guess it's a cheap option to experiment with. Maybe I don't really know what Imperial's charging
If
for
you're
him.
gonna get Insani in 6 months anyway, don't know, man. Going for a player who's been on the bench for quite a while, who does fit your roles and does have some experience, and if you're taking him to tier 1 tournaments, hopefully he doesn't just completely shit himself. I think that's not a bad shout. But again, I didn't actually watch him play that much at Imperial, so I'm not sure how good he was towards the end of it.
I'm gonna pick Koala. That's who I'm picking from Sharks. And if they can't get Koala, then I think Sharks
There's
should get Sadson.
no way.
Is he even close? I mean,
Koala's good, by the way. I think Koala's like really good, but I just don't think there's any way where Sharks will like let them have him.
Oh yeah, well sure. That's definitely plausible too. But if they can get Koala, I'd get Koala. And like I said, they better steal Sadson if they get the opportunity to, because that would be like Sharks at the major, where I'm like actually like leaning forwards, like looking at my monitor, like they can do this. They can do some damage. You win a game or two out here.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure that ties it up, right? Unless you guys have
that's all
like
I got.
any more sprinkles. Now, for my choice of One Deag, it's such a mouthful to say. Can we just go back and change this? But for my take, I kind of hate myself now because I feel like we kind of just went down the Rostermania rabbit hole, and I feel like this is just gonna continue to poke that particular can of worms. But the conversation I wanted to have was around sort of the career progression of Magic's. Obviously, that's just going to tie in with like Spirit's GMing, right? So you can't really avoid that fate. But I feel like Magic's has not only proven himself, but he's found himself to be good at a very difficult niche. Like incredibly difficult to find that like combination of traits within a player. So like if you look at the start of his career progression, right? You've got someone who's like a rifler, often sacrificial, maybe entering, sometimes going second, depends on the mood. But then he started to show a lot of traits like outside of the server that would obviously be benefiting the team to a pretty significant degree. I feel like he had sort of like that core jester feeling, but then again, like you've got Chopper at the helm, so I feel like even though you can uplift the mood, you're not really in a leadership role. And then once he goes away from the conversation of, hey, like he's a bit of a mood uplifter, decent enough player, he showed a glimpse of being like a really high pressure player in the Shanghai Major, but then that became a storyline on its own, right? Where it's like, oh, he had that one good major, he had that one good final, right? But I feel like within this major, now he's shown that not only is he like an IGL in a high pressure scenario, or like at least like some kind of like some kind of like leadership duties in high pressure scenarios, but he can also frag out. And because you don't because it's not someone else that has leadership duties, it's okay to have Spirit's mood or their emotions live or die by him, because you barely ever see him get tilted, you barely ever see him sad. Like I feel like his traits that were previously discovered have now been enabled when he's a bit more at the helm.
Let me go first.
The floor is yours, Twin.
Fuck. Yeah, I think Magic's just had some of the worst calling from a tier 1 team at the major right now that I've seen in a very long time in a playoff game. And I'll cut him some slack, because the lack of a coach does actually affect you a lot. One of the things that people don't realize is it's not just about what the coach does on stage, it's also about, the day before that, the coach is the one who is going to be sitting down and going through all of your demos and being like, hey, these are the 3 things that I think are better. And I don't know what kind of support they had, because again, for some reason, all anyone could talk about was a fucking frog, rather than being like, okay, but
Yeah,
how are you actually doing this? Because yay, frogs, that's so much fun. I'm 30 years old, god damn it. But stop laughing at me, Tony. You're gonna get
a
there.
lot of people. I'm cool with it.
You don't have a lot of
Yeah,
time
yeah.
left, Tony. 6 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
5.5
shoot.
if you're halfway through the year.
and the thing is, Magic's did a very poor job IGLing at this major, to be frank. I'll give him some leeway, but when you also consider that, as far as the field is concerned, who are you IGLing against? It's a Vitality who, again, they're the greatest team of all time, but they've also practiced the least that they have in the past year. They're literally in their worst form that I've seen them in the past year and a half from Vitality. The worst form before this was when they made it to finals and lost versus Furia and Epic BO5s. Wow. That's awful, isn't it? Right, but then on top of it, he bails his team out in clutches. Now, this is the thing where I will tag on to your point about Spirit for us, and Tony, for context, for us, told me that he wanted to have the Spirit point. Otherwise, this was going to be my original take. So I'm going to tag on to this. I think this team needs a roster move. I would remove Denier tomorrow, and I would add Boomage, and I would keep Magix in that, because I do think Magix is valuable. I think Magix is a valuable player in big stage moments. I think Magix is a Rain-esque player in the sense that he probably does give some very good secondary calls and whatnot as well. I don't want him to be an IGL. He's this IGLing thing, even with Sortfik coming in and Spirit looking better later on. Spirit looking better was still Spirit being the 3rd or 4th best team in the world, while having Donk and a Shiro who's playing his best Counter-Strike ever. No one even talks about this. Shiro's playing so well these days. All of that BS about just being hyper defensive is largely gone now. So Shiro
That's
is
from like 4
on
years
the
ago at this
highest
point.
level. Yeah, he's on the highest level of AWPing. You've got the best rifler, even now, in the world. No one disagrees with the idea that Donk's the best rifler in the world. Zontix is a
He's
very
never
good
seen me,
anchor.
but whatever. It's all good.
Tony, listen, just because you're American, you don't get an advantage automatically, all right? I understand that you fit the profile, but come on, chill out.
Fair enough.
Now, listen.
Okay,
I would just put Boomich on this team tomorrow, and I think this team becomes an instant championship contender.
Okay, so I'm gonna push back on that, and
On Tony's profiling?
That's probably
No,
more
we're gonna
suited.
agree with that.
That's probably more suited for like another iteration of this episode, so we can really like get into the brass tacks and profile him. But anyway, I feel like the idea isn't that Magix is the best IGL. Like what I wanted to bring to the limelight is like he is able to bring like a pretty high level of himself regardless of the level of pressure. Now whether or not you want to do that as an IGL, be my guest. You could maybe get Boomich on. I still definitely disagree with the move of like removing Tenier. I mean maybe I agree with removing Tenier actually, but not for the reasons that you've highlighted. I feel like he's proven himself in a high pressure environment, and the thing you said about like not uh being like a good IGL, a lot of the things that I saw, like, and I mean, maybe my eye test is just crud, right? Because I've got terrible astigmatism. But a lot of the times, you've got so many like things like smokes being missed, smoke timings being horrible, like last minute pushes. Sure, you can give some of that pressure to Magix, but I really can't evaluate him if like last minute you don't have like your coaching department in play. Like we can make like yab yabit jokes all we want, but that genuinely did affect the team. So I'm more willing to judge him off of like his performances right before the major than I'm willing to like sort of put the shade on him for well not having good timings or like late
Okay,
round pushes and
what
things like
performance before the major do you think justifies it? Like they won Astana, which is very, very,
okay.
very good, but also they did go up against what, a new Falcons. They went against a new Mouse in the playoffs.
that. And again,
Like that's not the best playoffs run.
and this is where I'm gonna point out like, uh, we haven't really since I was talking about sort of the career progression of Magic's, right? I don't think we've seen like his leadership level draw out to like its full conclusion just yet. I don't think he's been cooking for a very long time, right? Like I feel like 6 months, even a little bit more than that, just isn't enough to get experience in. Now, if you're gonna make the argument that hey, Spirit need winners now, definitely on board with it, but that definitely doesn't take away from my initial point of having Magix be someone that can manage the emotions of the team a little bit more when maybe even he doesn't even have to be like the straight up leader, right? Maybe he doesn't have to be the IGL, like more of a secondary caller scenario, sure. But then again, tea time, like this is where I'm like totally like leaving the floor open. Like, why do you think that Tenier should be the one to go?
Because number one, someone has to, and I just think
That's probably
Boomich
the
is a
best reason
direct
you've given so
upgrade.
far. I'm not even gonna lie.
Like, look, someone has to. You need if you're bringing in Boomich, who has objectively shown that he is a world class IGL right now. He is, without an argument, the best Russian speaking IGL in the world right now, in my opinion. I don't think there's much to contest with the streak of form he's shown. He's beaten Vitality multiple times with this, ragtime team that he has on BetBoom and everything as well. He's made it to the playoffs right now at the major. Fantastic results. All these taking legitimate heads on his way over there. I need to take someone out to bring in Boomich. Now, the question is Zontix, Magix, or Tenier? Zontix, I'm not taking out because the only person who can replace Zontix for me is Bit or Heavy God, and neither one of those are players that you're going to be able to get right now. I don't think I can think of off the top of my head anyone who's an anchor player who can immediately come through in Zontix's place and do what he's doing, which is be a pretty good, decent level, not a problem for a top 3 team anchor player. That's a very difficult role to fulfill. Tenier then comes up next, and I just look at it and say, look, the amount of matches that I've seen Tenier be absolutely atrocious in, even when he's given everything to perform, because he will have someone next to him that is Zontix going in first. He will have the ability to ask for a flash. He will have all of these things. He's not playing hard entry because Donk's already gone and taken at least one kill and dealt damage to another player. And even in all of these circumstances, Tenier isn't getting numbers versus, your G2s of the world, your 9Zs of the world. Tenier underperforms routinely, in my opinion. And I think he got a lot better. I think he got really, really good with Sotfik. I think he's at a level where he should be on a top 8 team. He's not going to be the player I keep when I compare him to Magix, who is the Donk Whisperer. And that's the problem. Dude, if
They're a package
anyone
deal,
makes Donk
right?
better, it's Magix. And I will take a better Donk over a decent Tenier. That's just,
I mean,
that's not even a conversation.
I think you hit. I think you're definitely on the money with that one. And this kind of ties in with hey, Magic's like you can have the team's emotions be tied to this guy because he is very robust. And like even if you and I can like fully disagree on like, hey, is he a good pressure player? Is he not? Is he being
He's a
affected by?
great pressure player, by the way. I'm just going to give an example of the 1v4 that he got that should get a graffiti and everything that everyone said. I remember the call very
Are you
distinctly.
making the
'cause I
IGL
remember-
distinction? Like not a great
Yes, the
IGL.
IGL
Okay.
distinction is, you know what the call was over there? It's, guys, 4 go A, I will take bomb B on Mirage. And then he ends up in a 1v4 because the 4 people who are going A walk into a stack because they took too long and didn't get the timings right and they didn't throw the right utility to be able to divert the enemy team away, who also wasn't playing their best either. Like G2 was not playing at their best, right? So he's a great pressure player. He is a great big moments player. Doesn't need to make the right calls for not being an IGL. Can it just be a secondary caller for me?
And Tony, I sort of I wanna hear your thoughts on, like I saw something on the desk from Ash, and I also saw like a bunch of his video, like a couple of videos that he posted, and he was talking about how like Tynir had a lot of his spots taken away from him because of the shuffle, right? And I want to hear your thoughts on how this ties into it because listen, I hear tea time. I know, like the chopping block requests ahead, okay? And someone's got to do it. Someone's got to be the sacrificial lamb. But can you really can we just go ahead and make the distinction between like, hey, is Tynir not playing well, or does he just not fit in Spirit for now, and that might not be his fault because perhaps he's been done wrong.
Or, Tony, do you think Boomish just shouldn't be in here and that we should stay with the same 5? Like, you can go for that as well, obviously.
Yeah. I'm a lot of different thoughts ran through my head while you guys went through that, and it was kind of like I half agree with this, and like I don't know if I fully agree with that, and it all comes down to me where I'm thinking to myself, I don't really know if I really think Boomich is good enough to justify a move in my mind, but if I had to make one, I guess, yeah, it would be him. But like at the same time, I don't know. I don't know the logistics of what Boomich would need resource wise to make this work as far as the pieces are concerned, right? Being a good in game leader doesn't necessarily mean you can take every team that you come into and make it good or better. You can be a good in game leader and join a team and where you don't know how to use any of your pieces at all. Nobody's had to work with Donk outside of Chopper at this level or Magic's now.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to use and operate this guy, maybe necessarily to the degree that these two have, or maybe even they don't even know how to use him, to be honest with you, to the fullest extent. He's using himself. He's a weapon. He's a tool, right?
Can I point one more thing out?
Does it.
Sure. I feel like having Boomich on the team, like, you can't think of all 5 players of Spirit and think, okay, adding this spice, adding the Boomich spice to this is going to make it better, because you also have to remember that it's not going to be the same level of firepower from Spirit anymore. Like, I know, like, saying, this almost sounds like blasphemy, like, hey, you've got the team with Donk on it, but it is going to detract from it. I mean, if you've got Boomich coming in.
That was going to be my follow-up, is that if I do end up doing something of that nature, I think I just boot them both. I would probably just, I think Boomich makes up for a lot of this energy and pressure play that we're talking that Magic's has in and of himself. I think Boomich has that about himself. I think you look at him, he's always smiling, laughing, high-fiving his teammates, giggling while they're losing in some instances, locking in when they need him to be the bunker down. And he does it. He bunkers down. And then you look at maybe the firepower that they lose if they did something like that. And I would just take Magnojas then. If we're talking about benching Tynir and picking up a higher firepower player or whatever, then just take Magnojas too. Just have Boomich be your entry player in the same capacity that Magic's does it already. What's the problem? Just do it. If we're talking about missing firepower at that point.
Yeah, no, so a couple of things. Number one, you're right. No one's made Donk work, but no one's been able to IGL simple before. And sure, that's with the help of Blade, but Boomich has since then made pretty much every team he's entered significantly better. The idea that, by the way, can I just also remind everyone, we didn't even know what lineup BetBoom would have going into this major because they had visa issues. So, realistically, even BetBoom wouldn't have known that until the very last minute when they do actually show up and have to play matches. Maybe they've got like a week more notice than everyone else. They're playing tournaments with different teams and at different stages. This is a player who does have that, and again, it's a hard comparison because you're comparing to the greatest of all time. He does have a bit of a Carrigan element, in my opinion, just in terms of the other thing is, I do wonder if why wouldn't Zontix's numbers get better? If we're talking about a firepower deficit, if he's just been playing with bad IGLs all this time, why wouldn't his numbers get better? Why
He's not a
wouldn't
player that really
Magic's?
relies on the in-game leader, to be fair, role-wise. Zontix really doesn't fall under the call. Like, he's always the player who's doing the last of the things. So, I mean, if the plan goes wrong, then sure, he's going to be stiffed. But, like, he's an anchor player. If Chopper tells him to rotate early, it doesn't really matter if he lives or dies.
Okay,
He's the anchor,
but also, to be fair, like if you've called the right stack, if you've called the right play site to go,
Sure.
you still find out with people having less HP. Zontix gets more information. Zontix gets clearer communication. Zontix gets all of these things. Like that doesn't really factor in what your role is. A good IGL who is causing a serious step up will generally cause most numbers to go up. I mean, that's just sort of a fact of Counter-Strike, how it goes now.
I
Could
see
he
the
handle
Karrigan
Spirit?
analogy
Who
now.
knows?
I get it. I mean, I see where you're coming from. Like, you bring in Boomich, everyone gets a little bit better, even if Boomich has to be a little bit worse. Now, do I think he's ever going to be able to uplift him to the level of, like, a Karrigan? Probably not.
No, of
but,
course not.
But, yeah, of course.
I think he can do it as good as Magic's could, is my point. If we're going to be
That's
talking
fair.
about it, I think that's fine. I think it's a fine move. I don't think you need Magic's. I don't think you necessitate keeping Magic's necessarily every single time if you bring in Boomich, is my point. He doesn't have to be a secondary
That's fair.
caller with him, in my opinion.
That's fair. I just think that right now Spirit's not going to go for a two-man move because of what happened last year, where obviously I can't even remember the player they brought in. Gilo? Was it Gilo?
No, they brought in Zwei.
Who?
You're talking
Was
about
it
Spirit.
Zwei?
Oh yeah,
You're
yeah.
So sorry, yeah. So when they
Tier and
brought
Zwei
in
at the same time.
Zwei and whatnot, right? So like bringing in a Magnetize and whatnot would be cool. Listen, I'm okay with that, but I just think that this is a place where Spirit did just make the semifinals of a major, despite having pretty poor calling, despite having not everyone working out to their best of their abilities. If I'd probably not make more than one change, and I would go for just an IGLing upgrade because. At the end of the day, when I look at all of the IGLs in the world right now who they're going to have to compete with, like CB, Fallen for half a year, fuck it, whatever, still pretty important. Apex, Karrigan, Blitz.
Question.
I take
you're-
Boomich over Magic's.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, putting Boomich over Magic's, then sure. I think we're kind of on the same page then, but like again, I don't really know if it's like if it can be that direct of an upgrade, but like I sort of want to bring it to my original point, right? Regardless of what Magic's position is within Spirit, that doesn't
What
take
was your
away
point? I
my
forgot.
original point was about Magic's career progression, right? Because he's found like he's found a weird niche for himself, like like emotional manager. Guy with a lot of pizzazz, a lot of entry work, lot of like pressure moments that he can handle. Maybe if we have
Do you
disagreements
think
on
he'll
it,
be
I
an
think-
Personality
IGL for the
higher.
rest of his
yeah,
career.
that's the thing, right? This is why I pushed back to Tea Time and I said we haven't seen his leadership duties come to their conclusion because that guy is like 20, 21 years old, and I feel like he needs time to marinate like Boomich did, right? You can't go back and look at like a 20-year-old Boomich and be like, okay, perfect swap. But again, surely the counter to that is
for us, but the difference is, look, one very important thing: who the fuck is going to teach Magic's? Boomich had Blade. Karrigan had God B.
I mean,
There-
Sophic should not be slighted. I will say, I will not take
He's-
Sophic slander.
he
He's been
is
playing for as long
he's a
as
good
those guys
coach.
in some capacities.
Yeah, but he look, if you look at most of the top IGLs, they get a really clear lineage of who was there before them, who's helped them create structure. You look at Apex has played with Happy when he was a major winner. Apex has played with Existence. Apex has played with the French Alex, who was very good, no matter what people might, maybe misremember now. At the time, he was considered like a top 3 to 5 IGL when Cloud9 signed him and everything. You look at Karrigan. Karrigan actually played with a
I
lot
see
of
what you're
really
saying.
great players and whatnot, right? He had, for a little while, he had Zonic, not for too long, but he had God B over him once upon a time and whatnot. Magic's, even if you want to take him along on this IGLing journey, I would much rather it be with a Boomich on your team, or at least like a better coach who has this sort of really good pedigree, because Spirit are the kind of brand, they're the kind of team with Donk, they have the kind of pull that they can bring that in. Magic doesn't. I have no reason to believe Magic will improve as an IGL when there's no one there to teach him.
I see you
To be
that
frank.
point, and I raise you the fact that all of his other teammates are also children. So forget not even just teaching him, but who's going to raise this ceiling of every other 22-year-old in this team? Like, who's doing that? Like, what wealth of experience is Magic's going to be able to do for literally everybody
Yeah.
else in his team? If we're talking not necessarily today or tomorrow, but I'm talking like careers, like we're saying here. Like, obviously Donk is incredible right now. Obviously Sheer is incredible right now. But for the sake of like their age and like the longevity they have to be ever evolving players, as well as regulate their emotions and learn how to level up when things aren't going right or they're running into a wall, who do they have for that? And adding to your point,
Mm-hmm.
not very many people.
Yeah, sort of just the bringing it back to my original point, like whatever the case may be with like, hey, do Spirit keep Magics? Do they make a roster change? Whatever happens, the one thing, and this is why I started with talking about Magic's individual career trajectory. It's that off of like the initial impressions that people had, where people built this reputation around him as just having like a fluke major, just having one good run, he's definitely extended his career in terms of like likability as a player, because now he fulfills a lot more than he did maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. I think on an individual level, he is a much more useful player than he was in the past year or in the past 2 years. Now, what that means for the grand scheme in Spirit, do they bring in Boomich? I don't know, but do you guys agree with that?
I'm on the fence. I need more.
I'm also on the fence.
I just think this is. I don't think Magic's career has had any significant advancements since Shanghai, when he showed that he's a big game player. Before that, we didn't even believe in him being that. And anyone who says otherwise just doesn't remember the
I think he's
conversation
always
around
just been
Spirit then.
fine. Like, I've never had a major problem with Magic's.
Magic's progression has been from all right to okay, big game, big play, not bad, pretty solid. Hey, why not, right? That's been his progression. I don't see that career progression that you're trying to highlight, but hey, if he walks that, gold paved pathway, fantastic. I want more good IGLs. I want more good leadership figures, even if they're not IGLs. Magic hasn't shown that to me yet.
I think that I'm now leaning a little bit closer and towards what Tea Time was saying as I reflect more and more, in the sense that not necessarily do I want Magic's on this team because I think he'll make it better inherently with Boomich as well, but I want him on the team now with him because it'll be almost like a passing of the torch symbolically of what Zeus had done for Boomich, where he plays in the team with him, knows that he's kind of building him to be a more knowledgeable player and
Why are you
potentially
doing that to
in-game leader for the
Tanir?
future, right?
Tanir did nothing wrong.
Well, Tanir,
Bro
that's
had his
okay.
spot stolen.
That's okay. Neither did Knock. Okay, remember, Knock didn't do anything wrong either. Okay, he died.
True.
He died for Device's sins. Okay,
He didn't do anything right after that either, unfortunately.
fair. That's also
Yeah,
true.
and now I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the initial Mott and Bailey setup that I had has been pushed back far enough that I'm more than happy to let you guys tie this one up.
I'm cool with Magic staying. I'm cool with Boomich joining, and I think that's probably the next step that I would take to see and assess what the real issues are, because I think we'll very plainly be able to tell if it's a leadership thing, if it's a firepower thing, or if it's a Magic thing, because it's not going to be a Donk
One
thing.
more
It's not going to
thing.
be a Shiro thing.
One more thing. Like one little surprise question for you guys. Where do you guys put Tanir from here if he leaves the team? Tea Time, you want to take that first?
What's his English like? It's pretty good, right? Because
Yeah, he was on the desk. He was on the desk, and he was doing a
that's what I'm
okay job.
remembering.
I think I would put him on Bet Boom for Siren. Sorry to cut you off and give you time to think.
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, hold on. Boomich is fucking leaving, so I guess I'm not putting him on Bet Boom. I gotta think again.
Bet Boom
I
if
have an
Boomich
answer.
stays, but then we're taking Boom.
I would
Yeah.
put him on foot for lunks.
That's a thought I'm gonna have to marinate for longer than the duration of this episode should allow.
Yeah. I think T side it makes a little bit of sense. A little bit of sense. It would be like kind of letting him off the leash again.
Yeah, and that's what I'd want on Tanir, man. Like, just to be on a team that should be top 10 and then be a star there. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
Any sort of final thoughts? Any sprinkles you guys would like to add?
No, I just feel like roster change, roster mania conversations that we had here were a little more like interesting because we didn't like just put them out in people's faces. Like this episode is talking about all of the roster changes. I thought it was pretty cool that we actually kind of went down the line of them naturally through our question or through our topics around there. That was cool.
Yeah, it wasn't a
Well,
Rostermania episode, but it's always a Rostermania episode
But it
if you do
always
it in
is.
like June or July.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Anyhow, I will close out the show for us in that case, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. All the shots have been fired. Make sure you comment which ones actually hit and which ones were glorious. Very easy to remember misses. I've missed more shots than I've even shot in that case. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to look at more of Tony, well, you're not going to find him on broadcast, but you could find him on Twitter. So check him out on his Twitter as well.
Why? Why aren't they going to find me? Am I dying?
Shut
am
up.
I being fired?